KShedd, you're on in 5, 4, 3, 2, wait, I'm just gonna go. You know what? Davenport, Iowa is a city that no one really would associate with much going on because you hear Iowa and everybody is like, wait a minute, nothing goes on in Iowa. It's a slow, real kind of simple state, really, and it's full of pastures
and corn.
That's what everybody associates with Iowa. However, Davenport, Iowa is slightly different. It's hard to put into words, but it's a city that just sits right in there. It's like the third biggest city in the state of Iowa. But I'm very fond of my time there. It taught us how to do a lot of different things with life, how to kind of be self-reliant. At the same time, you had neighbors who would watch over you as if they were your aunt or uncle. And so it was a family vibe that was very kind of fast-paced for Iowa city. When I got there, my parents posted up their home in Davenport, Iowa from Mississippi. And I was in second grade when I got up there. And I remember my elementary school was the Adams Apaches. Very uneventful. It took me a minute to kind of get all settled down in. I was kind of shy. I was a shy kid, if you can believe that. I don't exactly know why I was so like a quiet kid, but as I grew up, that started getting a little bit more comfortable and meeting all my other friends and stuff and being invited to like play dates and the kind of hangout dates and being part of some of the football games that they would have going on out there. You start to get to know people and getting settled on in a little bit more. And then I went on from elementary school, went to right across the street from Adams is Williams Junior High. And we were the Hornets. So our colors were blue and white. This is a nice, sharp looking school. That's when I started to kind of like grow into my own, I guess, a little bit, becoming a little bit more vocal, but still, I was kind of like a puny kid. So you're surrounded by a bunch of the guys who were growing up and you haven't quite, turned into a man just yet. And you're really small. So I think that kind of stood out in my head that I wasn't as vocal as what I ended up being later on in life. But Williams was a great time because that's the first time I first remember meeting a really good young man. His name was Robert Lacy. I bring up Robert's name because even to this day, he's known to me as my best friend. And I don't think anybody would have thought that him and I would be so well connected and, partnered up the way we did as best friends and stuff because we grew up two different ways, I think. Robert grew up kind of like closer to the downtown area of Davenport than I did. I was on the west end of the very, very west end. Robert was kind of down there right off the cuff of like a few more blocks down. It's like into the bad areas of Davenport. The downtown at that time was really kind of rough. And so Robert kind of grew up in a way that was just kind of like, he kind of had to deal with a lot more adversity, I think, than I did. I mean, his mom did a fantastic job providing him, Robert and his brothers with what they need, but still, you're a young guy surrounded by, it was crime. There was crime-ridden areas around there, drunk people, dealers roaming around. The bad element really was right there. So, and Robert was anything but that. He was very intelligent, very smart. That's one thing that stood out to me. He was a bigger dude too at that time. He was, I think, 6'3". Most everybody around who were in our group were as small as me. I'm like 5'10", so he was definitely our bodyguard type guy. No one really messed with Robert, but they didn't really know that Robert didn't really fight either. He was just a big, tall dude and stuff like that. And he was more of a lover than a fighter, but not very many people challenged that. And I remember our group of friends, we all had different personalities from each other. And it was really, really weird because we would always meet in my my locker because my locker, for whatever reason, the lock was broken. So we all kind of used my locker as the kind of the main hub. If anybody was running late or they needed to throw something in, like a backpack or whatever, before they had to go to class, they would just throw it in my locker. And then so pretty much everything every time in the morning, we met like where my locker was, and it was a good little gang. We had like people, a bunch of everybody really. Mostly it was the black kids and stuff who kind of stuck together. I had a lot more in common, I think, than anything else. So that's why we were all like kind of posted up together. I wouldn't say anything like it was a segregated type situation. We all kind of had similar styles. We played sports and then and we all kind of would meet up at the certain places. If we met at the YMCA, we'd play basketball. There was several parks that were here and there, all throughout the city. And then so on like Saturdays and stuff, we would all just kind of keep in contact with each other. Hey, which park we meeting at? And we just go hang out there. So for that, we had a lot in common. But I remember we were also bored like Iowa kids too, not much else going on. And the funniest thing happened, and all of a sudden, one day, I opened my locker, and there's this note in there, and it had drawings of all of us, all the people in our gang. It was like 5 or 6 of us, and it had drawings of us, and it was caricatures of us. It was strange because I've always been known to kind of have bigger ears. So if you look at this drawing, my ears are like huge. And then a couple of the other guys, one in particular kind of was known to kind of have kind of like a big old schnoz on him. So his nose was like about the size of his head. And then I can't remember what they did with Robert, but but it was something funny. It was a drawing. And it wasn't funny at the time because we were looking at this and it came off, as sad as it sounds, it came off as if we were being targeted by some of the white students because it was basically making fun of us for being black and our characteristics that they associated with being black. And it just, everybody was hot. It just came from nowhere. And we start roaming around and this big old ruckus started and stuff. And we like, wait, who the fuck did this? Who did this? And one of our guys in the group, I'll not say his name, but he was more wild out than anybody. And he was just going down the line, pushing and shoving anybody who's white and saying, did you do this shit? Who did this? And everybody didn't know what we were talking about. And it got so bad to, like the next day there was another letter like that and they all kept coming into my locker, and then so it was really weird. And before anybody could stop and think what could actually be going on, it started trickling all throughout the school and causing some divide, to the point where the vice principal, I remember coming down, kind of trying to investigate and everything. And, they did, that was like in 87, no, actually, I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was back in the 80s. So, that's when some of the rules nowadays weren't in existence. So, a lot of these guys, they didn't really quite know how to quell like a disruption between two different races and sides and stuff. At that days, it was just call the police. They didn't know how to speak one particular language over the other to get unity and calm down the situation. It was like more like push the red alert button, call the police, and then everybody's going to disperse and then we'll just pretend like nothing happened. That's how things used to work back in those days. So there was never any like kumbaya type moments and stuff to really kind of sit down and say, okay, let me look at the letter or this note or whatever this drawing thing is and stuff. Because had they had done that, they would have started to see something very similar with these letters. And where I'm getting at is that each one was drawn in such a weird way that it was more funny than anything. There was nothing in it that was calculated. Now, I've seen letters that were very direct, like, get out of town, nigger, that type of stuff. It wasn't anything like that. It was, and it was obviously so long ago, I can't really remember what it was. So in the end, after all this ruckus and these fights would erupt between the white kids and the black kids and all that stuff, the twist of all twists came down. We found out that it was one of us being funny and doing it to each other. We were doing it to each other and having fun because we were bored, and nobody knew it until we tore down half the school and terrorized everybody else. And I'm not laughing at it, but it was just kind of like, why did that go down like that? And at the same time, though, we were able to kind of use that as a catalyst to kind of get close because, like I said, me and Robert kind of, we grew up in the same city, but we had two different type backgrounds. But I was really starting to see at that time that Robert was really, really upset. He did not like seeing somebody making fun of somebody like me, or one of the other guys who didn't suffer the fate that some of the other ones did. But what ended up happening is that we found out that it was us playing pranks on each other. But I was able to see since from then that my guy, Robert Lacy, really, really was upset, like almost like like another brother to me, And so we move on to high school. We go to West High School. And, and it was the same thing. Him and I when we were able to drive, we'd go to each other's houses, we'd hang and stuff, and we'd go meet up with all kinds of other friends and stuff like that. And we just hung tight. There were some situations here where, the older you get, you start doing more things out there out in the streets and stuff like that. And then, you're still young and you don't quite know how to act and stuff. And even in those days, mixing a little bit of alcohol and all that stuff here, even though you're not way too young to be drinking, then all kinds of silliness and craziness happens and stuff like that. So I remember one time, me and Robert and a couple others would go to this club. It was a 18 or younger club that they used to have out there, like Stage 2, I think. It was in Bettendorf. And Robert was having problems with this girl. And so whatever reason, she started, well, anyway, one of the guys who lived across the bridge from Davenport started to try to put moves on his girl. So like I said, Robert and I had become so close, like best friends, that once I heard about it, I'm like, oh, no. Dude, I can't remember the dude's name, but it was like, there's no way in the world we're letting this dude freaking take your girl. So he was at the club. That dude was at the club too. Once the club ended, we get in our cars and stuff. And then I remember us being in the parking lot and behind their car. And so one of the guys in our car, and I'm going to say his name, and I'm going to bring his name up later on, and you guys are going to really trip when I tell you what ended up happening to him. A good friend of ours at the time named Steve Mallory. So Steve's in the car, I'm in the car, Robert's driving, I can't remember who else was in the car, but the rival was in the car in front of us, and they were, we were all trying to get out. It was a backed up parking lot stuff. So Steve's like, hey, follow my lead on this. So he's like, Robert, pop the trunk. So we're just a bunch of square balls from Davenport, man, trying to act all hard, everything we did was like, we tried to pretend like we were like really badasses, but we really weren't. So if anybody called our bluff, we were probably getting decked in the head and laid out, but we had the ability to be loud and scared people. So in this particular case, Steve put his hands inside the trunk and made it look like he was, and I hate to say it like this, but he made it look like he was getting a gun ready. And there was nothing in there, but he made it look like he did. So anybody like in the cars nearby, they would look like, oh shit, something's about to go down. So, and that was the plan, to make them think that they're about to get bum rushed. And those dudes found a way to kind of like skirt around the traffic and stuff. And then they hightailed it out of there. What ended up happening is later that day, that dude calls the girl, and then he's all like, these guys, man, they were about to, and then they weren't found their other friends. Then now they're mad. It was just like, and then they want to even the score because of, I guess they got scared and all that stuff, but now they're with their friends and stuff. So back and forth started on the phone. And it was just over silliness. And nobody was really like, there was nothing else other than we're in the stupid rivalry, like back and forth with each other. And, it's always one of those things where if the girl wants to move on, just let her move on. But it was one of those things like, no, she's not stealing my girl. And like, no, he ain't messing with my dude, Robert Lacy's girl, and it was just silliness. We're like 15, 16 years old or 17 years old at that time, was just really ridiculous. So what ended up happening is that, those guys would strike back, call us all kinds of names and stuff. And there was one time when we went to a track meet over there on that side of the bridge, I think in the Rock Island area. It was me, Robert, and our track team, and we got surrounded by their guys, and then we almost got our butts kicked at the track meet. Thankfully the parents and the staff caught wind of what was going on, and they got in the middle and they resolved it, but we were outnumbered like by 10, 15 plus. So we got punked on that particular case, and it was just like a rivalry. Davenport and Rock Island would always go at it. Those two cities hated each other, and this was just another case of that. So we ended up losing that one because, we had to get saved by our freaking parents, who did like this human shield around us as they ushered us out to the buses. It was pretty funny now that I think about it, but it wasn't really funny at the time because we were just trying to run a track meet. And then here we are about ready to get pounced on. So that was round number 3. So round number 4 came one night with me and Robert and one of our other friends to kind of pay these dudes back. So we go on their side of the bridge, right? And we get over there, we start creeping around, and we say to ourselves, hey, what do you want to do? So again, you got to picture a group of young black kids who are trying to perpetrate as if they're hard, and they're really not. They don't know how to do it, but they're going to perpetrate how they are. So we come up with our plan. Our plan is this: we find out where he lives, we park our car, down the road, and then we're gonna walk to where he is, right? And it's dark. So we all look at each other and there's like, there's this house. All right, let's go. And we creep on up and all that stuff. So we walk up to the house, and instead of like doing anything else, we ding dong ditch him and we take off running. And then we see him come out. He's like, hey, who is that? We're in the hiding in the background in the park across the street, laughing and smirking. Like, look at him. And we're having a blast. We do it again. Once the calms down, he comes back out. This time he has his parents, his mom or dad out there with him too. And we're still laughing our butts off because we rung the doorbell and we hid, and we're just laughing at these guys. Rather than leaving it there, our dumbasses decided, man, let's do it one more time. Let's just drive back down there. We'll hop out right quick and jump in the car, and then we'll do it one more time. That was fun. And like I said, we're kids, right? So we go and we're driving down the street. And this particular time, they had called the cops. And there's a freaking cop car out in front of their house. And they're out there talking to the cop as we drive by. And we get like right up next to them. And I just remember the dude pointing at the car. There they are right there. And the cop looked and he gets on the radio as he runs to his car. Robert takes off. Boom! We go down the block and this cop is like right behind us. And all we were doing was ding dong ditching this guy. But they didn't know that. And so by rights, we should have just stopped and said, officer, sorry, we were just being stupid kids. That's what we should have done. We didn't do that. We fled, and Robert goes down the block, does a quick right, and it was snowing out. And everybody familiar with the slush out there in Iowa knows that it's going to take you anywhere it wants you to go. So he makes that turn, and we lost control of the car. It goes zoop up the sidewalk and into this neighbor's yard, and got smashed up then over there, I think, in their bushes and stuff. Me and Robert and Corey, I was going to say his name, but we all take off, right, in all different directions. And I'm gone. I don't know which way they went, but I found out later on what ended up happening. So they're running and they're hiding in between yards. One got caught by a cop and tried to play it off, but then the cop knew he was one and then captured him. The other one tried to hide in, I think, a little hair salon or something like that, and put a magazine up against his face. So because the dude and their family and their friends started roaming around and looking for people, then they spot him and they knock the magazine out the way, and he's getting torn up. And then the cops come and they see that, and he starts yelling for the cops, hey, we're in here. And so he got saved, but he got caught too at the same time. So everybody goes to jail. I'm going backwards because I didn't know that at the time, because I kept on running and I was gone. That's when, I had like some speed from left and right that day, because as I was sprinting down the roads to get out of there, I see nothing but squad cars with lights and sirens on coming up that way to help. And I'm just, oh shoot. So I ducked behind the trees and stuff. And I'm thinking, I was like, what just happened here? We were freaking playing ding dong ditch. What's going on here? And all these emergency vehicles come from all over the place and stuff. And I'm just like, I just kept on running. I kept running from one side of Rock Island down through their downtown district. I ran across one of the bridges. We're talking about like 15, 20 miles of running. Got over to our side of the bridge, and I'm like running out of gas now. I've been running for like hours now. Finally, I got a ride from a friend. I had them drop me off at Robert's house because I was hoping that Robert at the time got away and then he got back to his car and he got back home. But I found out when I got to his house from a relative that, oh, you look for Robert? Yeah, here he is. And then he takes me where they had like the phone and the voice recorder, and he pushed play and you can hear Robert. I'm not laughing, but it's pretty funny. You hear Robert's voice, he's almost in tears. And Mom, I need you to come to the Rock Island Police Department. It's funny now, but man, that was scary. And I just knew it. I'm like, dang it, they got caught. And that just meant I'm going to get caught. And so I just told my dad what happened. I said, Dad, I'm sorry. Here's what happened. And the funny thing about all that is that for the charge of ding dong ditching, I had to get taken down to the Rock Island Police Department by my dad the next day, and who they brought me into the police department. And I still think there's a slight chance that this was a setup, that they did this to send a message to this young kid that you better straighten your life around, because there was no real way that they could charge us with anything, especially the passengers. They took me in the back and they fingerprinted me. They made me sit in a cell for a minute. And I was just like, wow, Me and Robert were taught some tough love about how you're supposed to be acting as a young adult. You know, it's time to grow up, basically. And I think we did. So Robert Lacy and I became very close friends and stuff like that. We still keep in contact with each other. Robert ended up turning his life around, going into the military service, and I ended up going to college. He went to college too, and then he ended up going to Western Illinois. I went to Northern Iowa. But we keep in contact with each other. Even though Western Illinois was our hated rival at Northern Iowa, him and I both would keep in contact with each other, and we would hook up when we can, like during the off season and all that stuff. We still go out and kind of talk and kind of hear how everything's going on. Lo and behold, my guy, Robert Lacy, went on to become a police officer in Milwaukee. So that's when everything is just falls into place. Because we were saved. We were some young, stupid acting kids and stuff who would do like really, really stupid stuff, just like any other kid growing up at that time. But we had family and friends and coaches who did everything they could to steer us in the right direction. And I wanted to thank pretty much the people of Davenport, Iowa for how we were raised, because there's statistics that still show there's several people from that Davenport that I grew up with who are no longer around. You know, I mentioned the name Steve Mallory, who was on our car when all this whole drama started with this girl. And it all started from when Steve got out of the car and like, hey man, let's punk these dudes and stuff. And I don't even know at this time, he might have even had a real gun. You know, I'm just being honest. He might have said, pop the trunk. And he was probably trying to get something out. I don't know. I just assumed it was like, let's pretend that he has something, but he might have really had a gun. And those guys saw it and they just hightailed it out of that parking lot. But, you know, Steve chose the wrong path. When he graduated, he went off and he didn't do much with his life. My understanding is he got hooked on drugs. He, alcohol, that stuff and everything. Started living a homeless life down there. And he was living in shelters and stuff. And there's this incident that happened where he seriously assaulted, like with a nasty punch to the head type assault to one of the homeless directors over in Rock Island, right? So that happens over there. He flees, and then now he's walking across the bridge from the Rock Island side across the Centennial Bridge back to Davenport. So he just committed a serious felony, injured this dude pretty bad, and now he's walking away. So that call comes out, and he's walking across the bridge, and the other side of the bridge is Rock Island. So he's walking from the Rock Island side back over to the Davenport side where he's from. So the description comes out, tall, black dude, coming from the homeless shelter. And so there's a video that got captured on the police cam that shows the altercation. Steve, and I didn't even recognize him. When I watched the video, guys, it doesn't even look like Steve at all, because he was a really skinny dude. He was always tall, obviously, but he was really, really skinny. This dude is tall, but bulky and like kind of big and husky, scary looking actually. So the dash cam on the police car shows the cop pull up and he gets out and he starts to talk to the guy. He's calm and casual at first, but he's very direct. All right, step over the other side of the railing and get on the ground. He has his gun out, or actually he has his taser out and not a gun. And Steve's like, what for? And the guy's like, just do what I tell you, get on the ground. And then Steve, and you can see it coming because it's very clear in the video, Steve is already plotting something. So he steps over the other side of the railing and he pretends to turn his back, but he's also turning his around and looking back at the officer at the same time. And you can tell that he was planning something. So me being a cop, I know now that what the officer should have done was kind of kept an eye on the guy, not get out until other officers come, maybe just update his position, obviously, because this is a big dude. You definitely don't want to be doing, I guess, I got to be honest, you don't want to do what the officer ended up doing, which is try to take this guy down by himself without any backup on a bridge. They're on the very top part of the bridge, right? So Steve's not having it. He's in a different world right now, and just not the Steve that I remember. Steve was a funny dude, very likable, funny dude, kind of comical too, but he was very, you didn't mess around with him or his friends and stuff. It was that Davenport thing, you just didn't mess around with his boys and stuff. And you could just kind of tell. Obviously, the officer didn't know that guy could go off. And I think had he had known that, he probably would have waited. But the officer didn't. So Steve turns around and starts to come at him. The officer tases him, and the taser doesn't have any effect. So Steve turns around and clocks the officer, knocks him backwards. And you don't see this part on the video because it goes out of view. They both wrestle on the ground. Steve's on him, just hammering away. Luckily, an off-duty cop who's on the bridge at the same time. He gets out and he goes to try to assist, but Steve is he's a wild dude right now. And he literally tries to grab this officer and he's about to throw him over the side of the bridge. It immediately death, because Mississippi River, just no one swims in the Mississippi River at all for recreational purposes, because it's just that rough. It's a scary river. It's unswimmable. So, and then that type of a drop, he would have died 100%. So this officer was fighting for his life, literally. So he pulled out his gun and they shot Steve. Shot him several times in the chest. And Steve, now you see Steve kind of fall forward in front of the cop car, and then he ends up dying right there. So, but the officer's life is saved, but he got decked pretty good. He needed surgery and all that stuff. And thankfully, the other off-duty cop was there to help save his life. But we lost Steve in the process. So fast forward, when I became a cop, I showed that video at one of the lineups. And, I always try to keep my KShedd Uncuffed show light. So when I played that video for our lineup, my sergeant, Sergeant Cotty at the time, he was very happy that I played that video, because, you can learn from it and everything. There's many different coaching points and stuff to go over that's helpful for the younger officers. So after I played the video, Sergeant Cotty thought that my friend, because I said my friend's in it, Sergeant Cotty thought my friend was the cop. So after it was done, he's like, "Man, Kenny, your guy charged his weapon perfectly and took out threat." And I said, "No, actually, Sarge, my friend was the other guy he killed." And he's like, "Oh." And it was kind of a weird, kind of awkward moment for a moment. Then everybody was like, "Oh, okay. Man, where'd you grow up?" And I'm like, "Davenport, Iowa, man." So, but Robert and I, we took the right path. And Robert is a guy who I had as my best man. I was his best man in his wedding. We keep in contact with each other. He takes care of my daughters as if like he's their uncle. Whatever they need, he takes care of them. He's always been there. When I go back to Davenport, we'll try to meet up. And he means a lot to me, because of when I became a cop, I was struggling and I needed to know some of the different things that he was teaching me in order to help settle me on in. And he wasn't judgmental like a lot of the other police officers I was working with. He wasn't like, "Dude, man, they don't want to be around you if you're making mistakes," stuff like that, because it affects their reputation. Robert could care less about that. He was like, definitely sergeant material already. And he would just tell me, "Man, this is what you should do. Here's how you handle these type of situations and stuff." I'm about to bring him on board, and I'm going to tell you how I really, really first started knowing that Kenny, it's time to grow up. Robert had already made that transition. He was no longer this knuckleheaded kid from Davenport running around there acting a fool. One time when we were younger, him and I did a challenge one day when we were driving from Rock Island and coming back home. We just came from the club out there and we were feeling pretty good. And we were young now, so none of this stuff should go back to bite my man Robert. I'm not a cop anymore, so it doesn't matter for me. Robert is still with the Milwaukee Police Department. I look forward to talking about that. But one day we come from a bar. I can't remember if I was driving or if he was driving. And I'm sure you can see what I'm talking about from there. We said, let's drive from here all the way home without stopping. It was the dumbest thing I think we've ever done in our lives. Either one of us, whoever was driving, that was the dumbest thing that they've ever done. And then whoever was the passenger was the dumbest thing that they've ever done for allowing it to happen, because we literally drove from the downtown district of Rock Island through all the different roadways, through lights. There was many different lights. All kinds of traffic. You had to go over bridges. You had to go through the downtown area, again, of Davenport. Then you had to go up hills to get to where the houses were. There was more city streets and stuff you had to drive by with lights and everything, stop signs, all that stuff. And I'm not laughing because it was the most reckless thing I think I've ever done or been a part of, actually. But we literally drove from one side of Rock Island, 10, 15 miles away, through traffic, city streets, and the roads and stuff without stopping at all. We went through red lights. We went through traffic. We passed vehicles who had preparing to stop. And and I don't know how we made it home. That's what I'm saying. I mean, we've been given several chances to do the right thing, and we were just two knuckleheaded Davenport, Iowa boys who just had to grow up. And I think we've done that. I'm really, really proud to have Robert on. I want him to talk about some things. The dude had a heart attack, guys, and almost died. died while he was working as a cop. And rather than anything, he learned what was needed, turned things around health-wise and diet-wise and stuff. And he's back out there, guys. He's such an example of what it takes to really continually excelling and making it work in this world and being grateful for the powers that be because of keeping them here. And he's given back to the youth. And so there's so many things that I would like for him to be able to share with you guys, because obviously our outlooks on life are the same. He's a black kid who grew up in, kind of like a all-white neighborhood in the city like me. But there's so much we still feel like we can give to this world until our days that are done. So when we take our break, we're going to come on back, and Mr. Robert Lacy, who when we were growing up, his nickname was Romeo Blue. I kind of want to know how that came about. At the same time, my name in the group was called Baby C. And that used to confuse the hell out of everybody, because they're saying, Kenny, your name doesn't begin with C? I'm like, yeah, it stands for Cupid, because I was born on Valentine's Day. So you had Romeo Blue, Baby C, Hooky J, Hitman, all kinds of cool nicknames for some cool cats from Davenport, Iowa. And all of us, I believe, have done a really good job out there when it comes to taking on adversity and then figuring out a way to make it work. So Mr. Robert Lacy, y'all. Everybody, give it up for my best friend, ride and die dog from way back in the days of Davenport, Iowa, man. Yeah, he's from Iowa too. I'll give y'all 5 minutes to throw your Iowa jokes at Robert, because y'all hit me all the time. But get Robert Lacy, y'all. But give him a hand first. This is Robert Lacy, one of my best friends, one of the dudes that will do anything for anybody out there, and he's been that way since day one. So, Robert, thank you for joining us today, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me, brother. Thanks for having me. Always good to see you, man.
Hey, is this Milwaukee's finest that I have with me today?
Yeah, I'm still there. I got till November 16th, and then we're gonna make it official. It'll be 25 and out. So 25? November 16th.
Yeah. I might have to write them down. When is that going to be the retirement day ceremony, or is that the retirement party?
That's a retirement day for me. I'll be gone November 16th. I won't be there no more. So they might be looking for me, but I won't be there. Yeah.
It's been quite the career, huh?
Yeah, it's been 25 years. So yeah. Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I was telling our listeners that, all the craziness you and I used to do and get ourselves into, and obviously I'm not going to do anything to compromise. And maybe I might even let this be a little bit more unfiltered, and then I'll just release our episode after like November 20th or something like that. So nothing can back.
There you go. Hopefully the statute of limitations have expired by now, I hope, on some of the things that we've done.
It was all innocent, man. We're just kids.
Yeah, we're just kids. Everybody have fun, I got to have fun.
But I was telling them, yeah, that's for sure. And we go back, but I was telling them how I really started realizing that I was the one who needed to grow up and get serious about everything. One of the times when you came down, from the Midwest, and you stayed with me, and we did a ride along. We hung out and all that stuff. But you were different. Yeah. You had just started being a cop and stuff, couple years on. But I could immediately tell the difference. Like, something's not right with Robert. He seems very professional and even more mature than he's always been. And then how I really knew it was time was when we were coming back. And I think we were coming back from the city of just kind of partying and all that stuff. I was partying. You were being very responsible, and I think you ended up driving us home. And we were stuck in a little bit of traffic, and I had to go to the bathroom, and so I said, "Hey, man, pull over." He's like, "Pull over on the freeway?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got to go to the bathroom." I'm like, and you gave that look like, dude. And right before I was about to get out and go up to the tree, like, I'm a cop now, man. I can't be messing around anymore. And it's like, you're serious, huh? You're serious about this? And I closed the door and I just held my bladder like, collapse. I'm like, I can't get Robert in trouble, right?
I don't remember that. I kind of remember being on the freeway, but I don't remember how the bathroom thing went. I don't remember.
It might have been a test, though, too.
What's that?
It might have been a test. Like, is Robert really all responsible now? And you proved it, man. And here you are 25 years later, man, after putting in your time and effort. Has it been an easy job?
it's been a good job, you know? It's been a good job. Not easy, but it's been good. You know, it's been good to me. It's been good for me. You know, it gave me the foresight to see what I should have did when I was younger, like stay in school, get your education, get the degrees, because in that way you're not working a job where you're out in the elements all the time. You're not working in the rain. You're not working in the snow. You know, it's hot or it's too cold. You know, I always wanted that office job, but I was never smart enough to get a job like that. So I had to become a worker. You know, it's a working job, you know.
I mean, have you always felt like as a youngster that you wanted to be out there being a worker though too? But I'm sure steadily move up the chain, but you know, running and gunning is kind of fun too, right?
The running and gunning was fun. You learn a lot. You meet a lot of people. You know, you make a lot of friends. You know, that are civilians or law enforcement. You know, you get to meet a lot of people. You get to experience a lot of things in life. I mean, I don't regret it at all. You know, not one regret at all. I think it's good. You know, it's a good experience for me in my life. It kept me grounded and focused. So yeah.
Were you in the Navy or the Army?
Navy.
Navy for a couple of years, right?
A couple of years. Yep. Then went to reserves, and then when I got out, I went over to my buddy Eric got me on with the sheriff's department, Scott County Sheriff's Department. So I worked in the jails there for about 6 years, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I went to Milwaukee, just hanging out, being young still, and we were partying and stuff. And one day we're watching TV, and my buddy goes, "Hey, look, Milwaukee's hiring for police officers." I'm like, "You think we should apply?" He goes, "Yeah, let's go down and apply." I went down, we applied, and I never thought anything else about it. And then like 4 years later, hey, you applied for a job. Do you want it? And I'm thinking, do I want to live in Milwaukee? And I said, how much are you guys paying? And they're like, they told me the amount, and I was like, I'll be there next week.
It went down like that?
Yeah. And that's just how it happened. I went to my boss, and I was like, hey, I hate to give you a short notice. I said, but the police academy class starts in a week and a half. And he just looked at me and goes, hey, go enjoy yourself.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, thank you so much, Mr. Black. Thank you so much. And I've been here 25 years. Yeah.
So that's not even counting the 6 years you did with the county? That's 25.
No, that's 25 with Milwaukee. I did 6 years with Scott County. Yeah. I've been in law enforcement like all my life now. But you know who was a good influencer on me going that route? And I call the man a genius. I call him a genius.
Willie.
No. Willie had some effect on it too, my big brother Willie. But the main guy was this officer that I knew in Davenport as a kid growing up. I ran into him when I was younger, like at the JTPA program I was in, and I got sent to a scared straight, like a scared straight before it was scared straight, and I got sent down to the jail, and there was this tall officer. He had this mustache, and he had that look, and he was like, eyebrow up, and he was like, are you getting in trouble? Really? Because I know you're your mama. And I was like, oh, shoot, I'm really in trouble here. He was like, don't get in trouble no more. And I was like, okay, Mr. Shedd, I won't.
Oh,
I won't.
Mr. Shedd?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I love that man. I met that guy. I tell you, he was a big influence on it too. I thought about what can I do with myself? What can I do with my life? As I got older, became a teenager, playing sports and stuff. I was average, so I know I wasn't going nowhere. But I'm like, man, what else can I do, to better myself? And I was like, I'm going to the military. I joined the military. It was good. I learned, and then when I got out, I was like, I'm not going back to those wars. I'm done with that stuff. So I got to find a job. I got to work. My mama always told me, if you don't work, you don't eat.
Hey.
So I'm not fat for no reason. I work. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So it doesn't get more cut and dry as that, man. You had some great people around you, guiding you along the way.
Oh, yeah.
And I do, now that you say that, I do remember you would call me and was like, hey, is your dad home? And it was mostly because you wanted to touch base with them. And it's so funny, Robert, because when I was telling the listeners earlier, when I started to become a police officer, I was reaching out to you. So basically,
Yeah.
you know, my dad handed you his hand and you handed me your hand and you pulled me up so we can learn this thing, man. It's not easy being a cop.
Yeah, he set the tone. He set the tone for that to go, which is nice. And it's so much appreciated, you know. So I never had a father figure in my life, you know, until he walked in, you know. So it was always nice. So it's cool.
Dad wasn't around, huh?
No, my dad wasn't around. He was around, but he wasn't around us. You know, he was around, but he wasn't around us growing up.
You see him around Davenport, but
no. When I was younger, we used to go by my grandmother's house, which is his mother's house. And we'd hang out there and stuff, but he'd show up, whatever, and say his highs and stuff. But it wasn't like, hey, Dad, how's it going? You know, he was just one of the guys in the crowd, you know. So it's a rough life, but it was a good life. Our mom took care of us. You know, she did her best, you know. So it was good.
She sure did. She bailed you out of jail that one day when we got in trouble out there ding dong ditching with that dude.
That was I was telling the dude, don't let me out. I was like, hey, don't let me out. Because your mom is in their other room. And I was like, can you just leave me in this room, please? I'll stay here the rest of the year. I just don't want to go deal with her. I do, man.
I mean, if we're gonna go down, right? Let's go down doing something cool, man. We were ding dong ditching this dude, man.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. You know. Yeah. So do you ever go back to Davenport now?
Yeah. Actually, I was just in Davenport maybe a month ago.
Really?
Went there about a month ago. I went to meet my brother and his wife and my mom. Went out to dinner and stuff. She loves going to this place called Rudy's Tacos. She loves going to.
Is that this one still at Brady?
Brady, yep. But the one she likes is the one down Old Village. One of the original ones in the Old Village. Yeah. So we go down to that one. She loves it down there. So yeah, we're gonna take her there and get her enchiladas. You know, she's happy.
That's a great atmosphere down there, man. Davenport's growing up, man, and blowing up there.
Man, and it's crazy because I never knew there was a farmer's market there. And my wife Googled it, and she said, there's a farmer's market downtown. I said, oh, that's where all the bars are at. Ain't nothing down there. She's like, no, those bars are gone. She Googled earthing it and stuff, and she goes, oh, no, it's all, there's restaurants, and there's a huge farmer's market, and you can walk around it. And I was like, let's go down there. We went down there. Oh, it's beautiful. Davenport's changed so much. It's changed so much down there. It's nice.
That's good. Hey, so I was telling everybody about some of the things like the Steve Mallory thing, you know.
Yeah. Steve lived maybe 5 blocks from us as a kid. I've known Steve since I was in like kindergarten. When we're in kindergarten together. Yeah, we went to Jefferson together. I ended up after we graduated from Jefferson. I ended up going to. My mom didn't want us going to the schools in our neighborhood because they're so rough. Yeah. And all my family was going to like, JB Young and Central. We're like, yeah, we're going to go there. We're going to go there. My mom was like, no, y'all are not going there. I'm not raising no thugs. Y'all going out to Williams. And I'm like, Williams? What the hell is a Williams? I said, what is that? Man. What is a Williams Hornet? Yeah. I don't even remember what the mascot was. I was like, Mom, we're not going out there. We got to take a bus ride out there? She goes, you're going to ride the bus out there. So, man, riding the bus with no heat, in the wintertime ain't no joke, man. You really? Be cold in that bus. Oh, man.
But that was one of the best moves ever made by Mr. Lacy.
Yeah. Yes, it was. Yeah. It certainly was.
And then me and you, we had like this group that we used to hang out with, man, that was a wide variety of all different kind of personalities, man. And, and me and you were like one of the tallest ones in the school anyway. Then you got me, one of the largest ones. I was telling our listeners how you used to protect me and all that stuff and everything, because I used to pretend like I knew how to fight, but I really didn't.
You knew how to fight. You just didn't want to.
Well, I was scared of getting caught because my dad being a cop, and that one phone call, that's all I was going to take. Mr. Shedd coming there, so we had our fun. But what do you remember most about your time at Williams and at West?
Oh yeah, friends. Meeting you, 7th grade. It was Dan Dawson. Meeting who's the other guy? Buckles. I remember him. He was always
Yeah.
Always a good influencer. He was always like, encourager,
Yeah.
I remember Derek.
Santa.
Santa. That's the.
Mike Clifton.
Mike Clifton, his little crazy butt. I always saw him we was called him a little He-Man, right? Something like that, because he always lifting weights.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kevin Carty. I remember those names. It's like those guys were. They were good people, good-hearted. They strong-minded. Good athletes, just we all had so much in common. I think sports brought us all together, but the friendship stayed.
It was almost like, okay, the percentage of Black people who went to our schools and stuff like that was very, very small and stuff. So, and it wasn't like we were dealing with some people who would treat us wrong or anything like that. Those same guys you just named, were all really good friends with us and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that what stands out in my mind more than anything is just the percentage of Black kids was like less than probably 1% at all the schools we grew up with, but we were part of the crew,
Yeah.
You remember that time when we went down to did that that fraternity thing?
At Jefferson.
It was cold.
Yeah. Hazing us. Oh my gosh. They got on you good. It was like, oh yeah, you think you fast. You think you fast. You think you can go run from this A whooping. I don't know if I can cuss on here or not. But you can't run from this A whooping.
Exactly.
You was like, man, why are they messing with me? Why are they doing this to me?
One dude, I can't remember who it was, but they got behind me and I think they said that they thought that I had an attitude. They said, "What's your nickname?" I'm just like, "You call me Big Brother Crush." Big Brother Crush? What? Let me show you Crush. And they got behind me and slapped the shit out of the back of my neck, knocked me like down 2 flights of stairs. He stood over me like, "You feel like you Big Brother Crush now?" No, sir. It was so many different things going on down there in Davenport. There was just like, where did this even come from? Robert came up and was like, "Hey, man, I got some of the fellows going to be doing this one night hazing for fraternity. Let's check it out." I'm like, that sounds fun. It was one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to experience in my life, bro.
It was bad. It made me realize that I never want to be in a fraternity. Because they go on weeks on weeks hazing them in a fraternity, real fraternity. So I'm like, no, you can't do that. Not at all.
Remember Junior Moon? Rest his soul. He ended up passing away. But that day they went to Junior. They said, "Hey, you see that tree over there?" And he's like, "Yes, sir. I want you to knock down that tree." That's exactly what they said. "I want you to knock down that tree." And he said, immediately took off running full speed for this tree. And there was no way he was going to be able to knock this tree down, but he wanted to please the dudes, the Pledge Brothers, and he went and he knocked himself out head first going into that tree. And the fraternity masters went up there and was like, "Guys, use your head." I said, "Knock down the tree." And he used his hand to knock down the tree as if he was knocking on a door.
Knocking down the tree.
Knocking down the tree. And
yeah.
It was. You're right. It was a great experience and stuff. I mean, did you have to deal with anything like that when you went to Western Illinois?
I think I had a buddy. He was pledging with the Qs, and I saw how they were and stuff, and I was like, "I'm good."
Not for you.
I'm good. Yeah, I said, I've been there, done. I've seen what this stuff can go. It's going on for weeks. I'm like, I'm good. You guys have that. I'll be your friend and say hi and wave at you guys when you marching through the courtyard and stuff, and you can't eat when you want to eat. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I was older though too than a lot of people when I went to school, so because I had been in the military and stuff, and it was like, no, I'm not gonna have a little 18-year-old kid poking me in the chest. And I'm like, who are you? You're not poking me in the chest. So
that makes sense. You wouldn't want one of those nice markings though, the branding though on your arm from the Qs?
No, it looks painful. It looks like it hurts. I'm like, it looks like somebody took a hot iron and
I think that's what happened. No, right.
It looks painful. I couldn't do it. I was like, I like my freedom too much. you know. So
I learned so much from you, man, because you kept it strong. You were one of those guys who, when we were just at that age, we're about to turn where we can get our license and stuff like that. We turn around and Robert already had his own car. He went out and he bought everything for himself. He was very, very reliant and disciplined like you would not believe. And it took the other ones in the groups to kind of like learn and watch, hey, man, let's make Robert our leader, man, because we follow this other guy. All of a sudden, we're getting in trouble and we're getting chased around these towns and stuff like that. I remember that one time when we were young stupid black kids, man, driving around through Moline this particular time. And we, somebody, I'm not going to say the name, obviously, but someone said, hey, man, watch this. There was this white kid with long blonde hair walking through the parking lot. We thought this dude was going to be scared. And I was driving. He's like, Kenny, man, pull up there, man, watch this. And he said, hey, white boy. And the dude sprinted over there to Corey. What'd you say? And popped him. Oh, I keep saying the name. Popped him in the head. Remember that? And the next thing you know, we're being chased by a whole truckload of hickish looking people. But Robert was always that one's like, guys, we got to stop doing this, man. I mean, you were always the mature one out of the group, man. It's great.
I was just trying my mind whooping my butt all the time. I was like, man, I'm tired of these butt whoopings. I'm getting me whoopings every other day. I'm getting a whooping. I come in the house, where you been? I was with Kenny. He was in the hood. Start whooping me. I was like, oh my goodness. I just got tired of getting whooping.
I wasn't trying to get people in trouble, man. I was a little knucklehead kid. But I figured it out. My mom and dad called me up to the kitchen one day after me getting in so much trouble. And they said very directly, hey, look, we're getting tired of getting these phone calls from your school. Now you have a choice. You either get your stuff together or you're going to have to deal with us. And the look that they gave me was fun time was over with. And Rob, I said, okay, I'm going to choose Zay just to get my stuff together. And, and ever since then, I started focusing on sports and stuff like that and kind of trying to get my stuff back together. So, I mean, I had like you and your brother watching over me, and I really started kind of trying to pay attention to the sports world. So I thank you for watching over me, man, and you and your brother the way you guys did. And
you were the protege.
I was protege, man. Willie was my mentor. I was protege.
Will was the mentor. Willie was like, y'all gonna do it this way. Y'all gonna listen. This is how we're gonna do it. And for sure we did. We listened to him. You listened to him. You got it through. You pushed him through before you know it. Where were we at? Running that state. You're running that state.
Yeah.
Then you run that state again the following year. Then you're running just the relays. And it's like, and we're winning and winning and winning. It was like, man, this is nice. This I like this stuff. This is fun. And then all that came with all the accolades that came with it. So it was nice. We had a great coming up as youngsters and in the 80s. The 90s. That's the 80s, mainly the 80s. So we had it good.
I hear you, bro. Before we wrap it up, I wanted to ask you a question right quick, man. Is there still a guy at your department who still has that rebel flag on the back of his truck?
No, he got rid of that.
He finally did?
He got rid of that. It was a license plate, like cover type thing, like whatever. But yeah, he got rid of that. Yeah, he got rid of that real quick.
He did. Did he get in trouble, or did he say, did he just start saying, I'm changing my stripes?
The thing was, his peers were like, look, dude, it represents something, very oppressive, and it represents something that's not what we represent up here, or with this police department. He goes, and you're driving this into our parking lot. Citizens see you park this car in the parking lot, and you get out wearing that uniform and stuff, and you go into that building, and then you come out into the streets, citizens see you, they're going to perceive you a certain way. If you don't want to be perceived like that, or, having someone prejudge you like that, you shouldn't put those precursors in front of them, because then it's going to happen that way. So he got rid of it. He got a little talk to, and he went outside to his car, and he pulled that plate off his car, and he apologized and said, I like the flag because it reminds me of the General Lee or whatever he wanted to say it was. I was like, yeah, it was a good show. It was a good show. I said, but that was then, this is now. And, he was like, yeah, I agree. So you keep your stuff that whatever you want to do at home, keep it at home. Don't bring it to work. Because when you're in work, you're a public official now. You're in the public eye, and people are watching us. So they watch. You know how it goes. You've been there. You know how you're watched. People see you and assume, or just because you're black, whatever, assume that I have to watch this person. I got to watch the person more closely because he might do A, B, C, or D. And not knowing that who you are, where you from, what's in your heart. So, but yeah, he got rid of that right away. Once it was brought to certain people's attention, it was like, yeah, this has to stop. And he stopped. Unfortunately, I think for him, he did end up losing his job later on down the line,
really?
For some unforeseen things, but that's just.
You think you can share?
Well, I want to say, not to put his personal business out there like that, but it came down. He had a business. His wife had a side business, and they end up scamming the business, whatever, doing some tax fraud stuff, whatever. And he ended up trying to cover it all up with the wife too and stuff. And then he ended up losing his job because he was, of course, committing a crime. So.
I mean, and so, but it's good to know. It's good to remind the listeners and stuff like that, because we're examples of a job that's very taxing. It's very rewarding at the same time. But with it comes a lot of power and authority. And a lot of us, after a while, we start thinking we're above the law and we can get away with some things like that. I can't tell you the number of guys and girls who I've worked with, and then they kind of lapse in judgment at a particular time. I can't say his name, but one of my training officers, who I was supposed to have as a training officer, was on my list. FTOs are highly regarded. And I just remember getting my list of FTOs, and I remember seeing this guy as my second guy. So I just remember the name. And so when I got there, I finished the academy, and then I was getting ready to kind of settle on in and for the field training program, I noticed that his name had been scratched off and it was replaced by somebody else. And I heard what happened. He got fired because he was at a whatever training in whatever city, and it was a very complex training. It was like Intel type stuff and Intel gathering and very computer type stuff. So a lot of information is what I had to kind of write down or take record of and stuff. And I think that he didn't have a thumb drive, right? So he couldn't save all the stuff he needed to, and he was struggling in the class because he didn't have all the equipment he needed. So the lunch break came, and during lunch break, he only had a short number of time to get in and get out. So he went to a store where he can get a thumb drive. And so now he's rushed for time, and now the line of people who are being rung up is long and huge. So now he's looking at his watch and he's like, oh, run out of time. So rather than thinking of all these other things that could have taken place, he made the unfortunate decision to put the thumb drive in his pocket and head on out because he had to hurry and get caught.
Right. Yeah. Always being watched.
You were saying that's how our young kids should start thinking. If you're dealing with a police officer, just know, right, that the police officers they got recorders, they got their cameras on, so they're always being watched. So how should the youth be?
I worked in a school for 3 years. I worked inside the schools for 3 years, and actually was just surprised how far down the rabbit hole these kids have gone as far as their education, as far as their respect. They only respect themselves. And it's sad because some of these kids are so smart, and talented that they don't want to use that smartness or talented for the good. They want to do it for bad. And it's like, you're too smart to be doing dumb stuff. You should be getting all A's, but you're walking the hallways and you're hiding out in the stairwells, smoking weed in school and trying to find girls to pick up on instead of going to get your education. Because when you time out of school, once you're done with age-wise, you can't go back to school. You can't redo it. You can get a GED, but who wants a GED? No one's wants to hire you with a GED, not nowadays. And if you got a record, I always tell a lot of kids when I was in school, if you get a record, whether it's disorderly conduct or fighting or even a little marijuana ticket, I said, that stuff follows you. I said, it follows you. When you do want to turn your life around, go to colleges and stuff, they look at that stuff. And they see that, oh, this guy's a troublemaker. He has a bunch of disorderly conduct tickets. He likes to fight. We don't want this on my campus, and then you'll get denied. And then you wonder why you get denied, and you want to play the race card, and it's like, it's not the race card majority of the time. Majority of the time is your track record. Is what you built up, what you put yourself on. I used to tell kids, your attitude is your latitude. If you want to go high, change your attitude, and you can get far in life. Because if you don't, I tell them, I said, look at me. I said, I come from impoverished neighborhood. I grew up, poor, one parent home. 3 brothers, I said, we struggled. I said, but my mom said one thing. She taught us how to wash our clothes, how to cook our food, and how to go to school. And she said, that's what you're going to do as long as you're going to be here. And that's what we did, and we had fun. We played games, we had video games and stuff, but we spent time outside. We spent time outside in the fresh air, hanging out with our friends and stuff, and making memories and stuff, not playing video games and stuff. Video games were fun, but being outside, running around with your friends in the neighborhood, or riding your bike all the way across town to see your buddy who lives up there behind Williams, and hang out there and stuff, and walk the neighborhood or go play basketball or something like that. Those are memories you won't ever forget. So I tell these kids that make your memories now. You'll be an adult soon enough.
Romeo Blue, everybody. Yeah. Oh, this has been so enlightening. Thank you so much for your time, man. Baby C.
Baby C, my man.
I'm proud of you, man. And I wish you nothing but safety and the best wishes en route to November 15th, okay? 16th.
Yep.
Be safe, take care of yourself. And
we're going to do this again, my brother.
100%.
Sure.
Thank you for your kind words, and I'm always being there for my kids. And I'll tell the wife I said hi, and thank her for completing my man Romeo Blue's circle.
Yes, for sure.
All right, brother.
All right, my man.
Well, Matt, when you need.
All right.
KShedd out.